The recording has started. Diving deep into the storm, bringing light, we can release that we no longer need. Diving deep into the storm, bringing love, so we can release that we no longer need. Diving deep into the storm, bringing love, so we can release that which we no longer need. Diving deep into the storm, bringing love, so we can release that which we no longer need. Diving deep into the storm, bringing love, so we can release that which we no longer need. Diving deep into the storm, bringing love, so we can release that which we no longer need. Diving deep into the storm, bringing love, so we can release that which we no longer need.
Aloha. Good evening. This is Andrew Aloha live out of Flagstaff, Arizona, with Spiritual Image Productions on Blog Talk Radio and free conference call and YouTube. Establishing and maintaining right relationships in human bodies. Aloha and welcome to tonight's show, Intimacy, Tantra, Relationships, Psychically Fulfilled. Tonight we're talking with Holly Devi Amoore, all the way out of California. Aloha, Holly.
Aloha, Andrew. Aloha.
And thank you for being here. And tonight, just to let you guys know, we're going to be talking about how the subject matter is how do Matthew T. Lauer, Harvey Weinstein, and others overcome sexual misconduct. Just to let you know, Andrew Aloha and myself and I and Maha, Dakini, Lorae welcome you to Intimacy, Tantra, Relationships, Psychically Fulfilled show. This online Tantra session is filled with spice, nice, and everything, right? Aloha is a Tantric Practitioner for several years, while Maha, Dakini, Lorae is out of San Francisco. She's a Sacred Sexuality Educator, Certified Tantric Counselor, and Tantric Healer. And each month we both, and at times other guests, such as Holly Devi Amoore with us tonight, discuss relationships pertaining to couples, partners, lovers, and significant others from a tantric and a psychic point of view. Join us as for an incredibly interesting show filled with relationships, spirituality, sensuality, intimacy, healing, sex, and more. Again, you can check it out. Tonight, I'm not sure if Maha Dakini Lorae is going to stop by. She had some kind of a conference to attend, and she said she might stop by. So I don't know. We'll see what happens. Anyhow, three words that describe Holly Devi Amoore are delightful, educational, and enigmatic, or sensual and erotic edutainment for Tantra exploration and fulfilling connection. Holly Devi Amoore invites you into this ancient inner sanctum deep inside yourself. It's a place of quiet solitude, but once yoked can bring you great heat, arousal, and passion for life. In a Tantra session with her, you'll go through a journey deep into awareness, building upon breath, sound, and small connective movements. By anchoring into the present moment, you begin to feel your body more deeply, and you can be in tune with your partner. By clearing your personal space through chakra alignment and ceremony, awareness becomes acute. You can become expanded through awareness. Holly Devi Amoore's mission is to explore edges and effortless enlightenment through tantric meditation, yoga, and touch. She's a level 3 certified tantric educator through the Source School of Tantra, which professes that when passion, love, and consciousness join together, they transform sex into a profound and loving meditation, which increases intimacy, joy, and connection in a couple's life. The Tantric practices offered by Holly Devi Amoore is a journey of transformation for couples and singles who desire an experience of expanded love. She welcomes you to explore the spiritual benefits of cultivating body wisdom, healthy desire, embodiment practices, energetic principles, and the deep edges of enlightenment. She specializes in loving your body yoga, Leya yoga, breathing with meditation, pranayama, and sacred spot massage, celebration of your body temple. For more on Holly Devi Amoore, you can go to www.sourcetantra.com. And then again, we're going to come back and talk about the Matthew Lauer, Harvey Weinstein, and their overcoming sexual misconduct, and also with Holly Devi Amoore. In the meantime, I do want to give a big aloha to all of our underwriters to help this show happen from week to week, month to month, year to year, beginning with the 90-Day Ascension Journey at www.90dayascensionjourney.com. When you sign up for the 90-Day Ascension Journey, you will be facilitated with defining and redefining your soul through life purpose. You will be assisted with finding out what Ascension means to you. On this journey, you will be provided with tools, techniques, and assistance to empower you to connect and reconnect with yourself, your soul, your emotions and feelings in your mind, body, and spirit. Through a universal soul-centered process, you will be going through a lifelong transformation that will allow you to move forward with your endeavors and never look back if you dare. And for those of you that are interested, I wrote the book version of this last year around April, and basically to help people just plug along and keep up with what the journey. The journey is a 12-week program, and if you want to order the book, you can go to Amazon.com, also Kindle. You can get it on Kindle for 99 cents, and check it out. And if you like it, then and if you want to do more, then get a hold of me. and we'll do the mentoring program that you want for the 12 weeks. Anyhow, we also have a novité, which is the French word, at www.spiritualimageproductions.com with over 25,000 scientific papers published on colostrum, a 90-day guarantee, and winner of the Healthy Living People's Choice Award twice over. A novité focuses on helping people with weight loss, anti-aging, heart disease, diabetes, depression, high blood pressure, asthma, allergies, rheumatoid arthritis, inflammation, gout, lupus, fibromyalgia, Crohn's disease, cancer, ulcers, the polio virus, chronic infections, digestive disorders, and Alzheimer's disease, autoimmune disease, thymus gland, mental clarity, maintenance and protection of the immune system, synthesis and repair of the RNA and DNA, and much, much more. And again, you can go to spiritualimageproductions.novate.com and you can check it out for yourself. Now you can also, and we also have, Maha Dakini Lorae at www.mahadakini.com. Maha Dakini's Lorae, Maha Dakini Lorae's life has been a personal journey exploring sexuality and spirituality for over 20 years. She's a certified tantric counselor and tantric healer and a certified mind sound teacher. Maha Dakini Lorae is also a graduate of Margot and Zero Skydance and Tantric Practitioner training program, as well as a current member of the Association of Sex Educators, Counselors, and Therapists Club, and a charter member of the Association of Sexual Energy Professionals. She regularly attends trainings and conferences to keep current with the latest research and information on sexual education. And so, again, if you missed some of this and you want to check it out, you can go to spiritualimageproductions.com. Spiritualimageproductions.com. On the left-hand side, there's a link that says Intimacy, Tantra, and Relationships Psychically Fulfilled. Intimacy, Tantra, and Relationships Psychically Fulfilled. You click on that, and that'll take you to the page where I'm at and give you all the information that we just talked about. So, and before we get started, I do want to put a disclaimer. Tonight's message is how do Matthew T. Lauer, Harvey Weinstein, and others overcome sexual misconduct. I do want to let you know that, as far as I'm concerned, I don't think you are Holly Devi Amoore. Are you a licensed or certified physician or therapist or clinician?
No, I am not, sir.
Okay. Are you a licensed or certified attorney or counselor?
No, I am not.
Okay, so neither am I. So if you have a need to visit any of these people, by all means, you would do so at your convenience, and don't hesitate to do so if you really need to do so right away. And I do want to make that disclaimer so that way you're not misconstrued and there's no confusion about the information that we're putting out. Now I do want to also let you know that there's and we're not just talking about Matthew Lauer or Harvey Weinstein. Over the last 2 years, probably there's been more about sexual misconduct in the media than probably in the whole history of mankind. I don't know, but we have Bill O'Reilly, we have Senator Al Franken, who actually apologized for his behavior, Congressman John Conyers, Bill Clinton, Tiger Woods, David I don't know how to say his last name from X-Files. Do you know how to say his name? Dashinovny. Anyhow, also General Petraeus, Charlie Sheen. Who was it? That guy Spacey, Kevin Spacey, or what's his name? The guy from
House of Cards.
What's that?
He was in House of Cards.
Yeah. I mean, there's tons of them. You can go to the media yourself and look it up for yourself, and find there's plenty of people that have been not very nice people. They've been naughty people. So they've committed to behaving in an inappropriate way on a sexual level, and so what do you do with that? What do you do with that? If you've already committed the act, well, you've already committed the act, and if you've already gone to jail or prison for it, then you've already gone to jail or prison for it. And some of these other people, they're well-to-do people, and see that's what this is all about. Is a lot of these people have lots and lots of they're millionaires. They're conducting themselves in this manner, in this way. So Holly Devi Amoore and I were talking about it, and I said, well, what do you do? What happens when you're either thinking about this, you're behaving like this, or already done this, and I've already paid millions of dollars to keep people from talking about it out in the media. So what do you do with all this? How do you overcome this whole energy? And it's an energy called sexual misconduct, and which leads into all kinds of other things as well. So anyhow, what I want to do, I have a list of things, and then also Holly Devi Amoore can jump in when she's ready. But I thought, well, if you're going to overcome this type of behavior, or if you're planning or thinking about behaving in this way, you want to think about some of this, and you haven't, and especially for those of you that haven't behaved this way yet, or are thinking about it, or maybe just haven't got caught yet, or maybe just are just doing it in a slight way, and it doesn't matter how slight it is, it's still considered sexual misconduct, whatever we're talking about. And we're talking about several different platforms here now. Hang on a second. We're talking about sexual and sexual misconduct it comes down to various different. It's named. It has several other different types of names. Maybe there are different styles of sexual misconduct, but they're still the same thing. We're talking about sexual assault when however slight there's sexual intercourse involved. We're talking about sexual harassment, where there's discrimination involved, whether it be verbal, written, or physical. We're talking about sexual exploitation, where people are basically what's the word? They're intimidating people or other stuff. And we're talking about sexual intimidation and stuff like that. And then we're also talking about sexual abuse, sexual battery, sexual professional boundaries, sexual bullying, and I mean the bottom line is sexual ethics. And so that's kind of where we're at. So what do you think about this right now, Holly Devi Amoore?
Why don't you just call me Debbie for sure?
Debbie, is that what you want me to call you? Debbie, Davy, Dava, Amoore, Holly, whatever.
Debbie.
All right, Debbie. Okay.
It's Debbie. That's easy, right?
Okay, so Debbie, what do you think about all this? What's this? What's going on in your head concerning all this?
I think that what Gail Rubin had to say about 30 years ago, and she's a cultural anthropologist, feminine activist, and she observed sex. And what she basically noticed is that human beings tend to renegotiate the sexual order. For instance, in the late 19th and 20th century in England and the United States, in the 1950s, when communism was linked to homosexuals, was another. So she wrote an essay called Thinking Sex, and she doesn't give any theories as to why these happen, but this is what I think is happening now. We have had, with the hashtag #MeToo, a rearrangement of the sexual order, because if you remember, we've all heard about it, the casting couch.
Okay.
You go to an audition.
I hear you.
Women were sexualized.
Yeah, and
I think that we are renegotiating the sexual sphere, that this is no longer acceptable. The concern that, yes, the concern that
I hear you.
New Yorker article that references Gail Rubin's book, now this can be found in the New Yorker on December 14th, 2017 by Marcia Geffen, and we'll make sure that Andrew posts the link so you can read this for yourself. But her title and her concern was the misplaced scale, because there's a huge halo impact of when this is a real therapeutically induced issue, or even if someone makes a misstep, that there is an impact that can affect many people. I mean, just plain and simple, Harvey Weinstein Productions, Kevin Spacey House of Cards, they're not working. all of the other people who are associated with those productions are out of work. But what you asked me about was what did I think about, what to do when this occurs. And that's a whole nother part of conversation. I think being aware that the balance can be tipped the other way as well is a consideration. And just like you brought up Matt Lauer, I think there's no way to judge him. As you mentioned at the beginning of the show in the disclaimer, we don't have this conversation today to judge anybody. But here is what I really agree with in Marsha's conversation about Gail Rubin's book, Visa.
Okay.
It's one area that we can control right now. In a world that seems so out of control, when time seems so difficult, it is one area that we can control. We can reign the sexual sphere. Men of power in the 1970s, I personally witnessed the Playboy Club in Dallas, Texas. It was Donald Trump and some other, movers and takers from the East Coast and from Texas. And it was common practice to pat the bunny on the bum. That was not considered sexual harassment. We have to change this sphere. I think there's a tactic to really stir up some hysteria around this erotic consent. And we as women have to be extremely cautious because being made to be like children, we can't give consent, or we're defenseless, or like you're saying, if you're thinking about it, I don't know about the premeditation of any of this stuff that happens. The jury's out. We can't say.
Exactly.
But being able to have a voice, knowing your boundaries as a human being, having a compassion and empathy for another, I think that's where one starts.
Yeah, I hear you.
The conversation had to be had, and yes, I think we're renegotiating the sexual order.
Yep.
Where,
but it's not just sexual order, but we're talking about power structure, and that's what the root of this is.
For instance,
go ahead.
My children are in their early 20s. They have gender fluidity. That would have never been an acceptable conversation in the era that I grew up in, just one generation ago. So I think to go back to we can't control it. It's about boundaries, and there ought to be distinction made in the conversation here between power and sexual consent. Like, I'm going to use my power to get sexual consent, and a woman and a man ought to have the ability within them to give sexual consent from an informed decision. And so I just want to, give us pause, because just like the anti-gay crusades were done on saving the children, I want to speak to the other side of practice. Like, a gentleman got fired from the Washington Post for just accusations that didn't, I read about them, and I'm like, oh, well, that's not so heinous sounding as what Harvey Weinstein and Matt Lauer are accused of doing.
So I hear what you're saying, and
clean this up is to shine light in it and have conversation. What is consent?
Now, and before you go further, Debbie, in my research of all this information, that was the root of number one, power and consent were the root of all this to begin with, and also pain.
Right.
When a lot of these people, probably all of them, are lashing out. They're lashing out because they're in pain. And this is, they're acting out, and this is how they're acting out, because they're in pain from their mom, from their family, from whatever, some girlfriend, ex-girlfriend, who knows all the different scenarios.
So many scenarios, Andrew. We don't want to limit it for someone who might be listening and have their own issue.
I hear you, exactly.
Agreement that there's some point where the conversation, where that imprint got started, and here's where we can insert, how does Tantra play a part in this Me Too conversation and the conversation about consent.
Got it. And so, what does consent look like, Debbie? That's the question. I think that's the biggest confusing part of this whole situation is that these people don't understand consent. This is, and we're talking about a lot of this is old school, but then again, I was doing the research, and there are kids that are being having to register for the sex offender registry thing. They're 14-year-olds, 12-year-olds that are having to register from sex offenses. So
because of current law, and just like that Miss Rubin wrote, that we occasionally start to rewrite the laws and the mores of what's appropriate sexual conduct. And I think the pendulum is swinging the other way. And in cautiousness, let's speak to being empowered as women, being empowered as men. I know that men have sexual violations as well. I don't want to be gender biased. I just want to bring our attention back. Where is there a solution that's a preventative? And then we can rewind back what to do if this has happened to you, either victim or perpetrator.
Exactly, and I want to be very clear with this, Debbie. This is not a show to address the victims and empower them. This is a show, and I'm not saying to give the perpetrators power to be more abusive. I'm saying this is a show to give the perpetrators power to heal and be themselves and stop acting out.
So let me ask you, how can you see a world of healing where the perpetrator and the victim don't come together and have empathy?
They have to.
Part of it.
Absolutely, they have to.
Part of it. You can't speak to one without the other.
Exactly. And that's what and even in my research of all this, there's all kinds of programs, and there's funding for the victim to get healed or get a shoulder to cry on. Well, again, the victim needs to be empowered just as much as the perpetrator. It all works together, and a lot of this has. And if you've ever read the book, John Bradshaw's book on toxic shame, this has been going on for generations. This is not something that just came out of the woodwork within the last few years. This has been going on for generations, and it's been needing to be healed for generations.
From what it was like, in my mother's generation, we could not even be having this conversation.
Right.
In the 1950s.
Exactly.
Here we are in 2017. It's gotten really real, and again, my concern is that to prevent further victims or perpetrators is to be practicing and using consent.
Exactly. So I took the liberty to make a list of things that the perpetrator can address for themselves to heal themselves, and this is not only applies to them but also to the victim, because if they understand what's going on, then there's no reason for them to be a victim at all. There's not even for a second. So it goes both ways. Now, one of the things that I really hit me like, well, that I really know that needs to happen is if people become aware of what the boundaries are, what the guidelines are, what the laws are concerning sexual misconduct. That will, and also if they understand what sexual misconduct is, then it will help for them to make distinctions, establish boundaries one way or another, so that
and that is the concern of Marcia Greet in her article in the New Yorker, is that it's so subjective.
Exactly.
Even from, like, I speak fluent Spanish, I can hear the workers on the roof speaking about me and my dog. I could decide that is sexual harassment.
Got it.
So that's the other point is women are and men, we need to take it in and see where it lands before responding. Like, I was so happy that your caution was like, hey, we're not therapists, we're not doctors, we're not attorneys, we're not law enforcement, we're not here to define how this goes. We're going to have a conversation around, how can one have healing? And amazingly, if you are the perpetrator, like Harvey Weinstein or Matt Lauer, and we're presuming they're guilty in this, then you deserve healing as much as a victim. And that ought to... people.
and hang on to that thought, because we're going to get to that, and you're absolutely right. It's different for everyone, even though and there is a foundation out there for all this. There's a solid foundation for people to pick and choose from of what they want sexual misconduct to be, but more so they're in the legal systems, and even across the states, the legal systems differ in terms of what sexual misconduct is. So what I took the time, and this is interesting to note, because I found definition of sexual misconduct not only through Wikipedia, but through the University of Nebraska, I believe, and also in the court systems. And it's interesting how even on those levels they kind of differ, and in terms of what the real world substantiates, and the legal system is probably the most accurate and the more defining version of what sexual misconduct is. But I'm just going to go over this.
But we know it's a reflection of the sexual ordering of what's appropriate and what's not. That's what we know the law to be. Anthroposophically, culturally, this is what affects change. It's not illegal anymore to be a homosexual in the United States like it is in Nigeria,
okay.
for example. Okay? So, as well. Just to bring that to your attention, that we've expanded our view of what is appropriate sexual conduct. Now, there are some areas in this country, in America, that I would not want to be a homosexual person because I would be concerned about my well-being, right?
I don't want to make this about gay people, because being gay is not sexual misconduct in the United States, and we both agree to that.
Andrew,
yes,
it used to be just in the 1950s.
Okay.
So all I'm saying is that the conduct in the 1950s and what some are accused of and what we've lumped all together.
Okay, so
absolutely okay then.
I want to stay with 2017.
Later,
let's talk about 2017, Holly or Debbie.
Pardon me?
Let's talk about 2017.
That's right, where we all presume that we're giving consent.
Okay.
So get back, that is consent.
I want to define sexual misconduct first, and then we're going to define consent. So sexual misconduct, according to Wikipedia, is a misconduct of a sexual nature. The term may be used to condemn an act, but in some jurisdictions, it's also a legal meaning. Sexual misconduct encompasses a range of behavior used to obtain sexual gratification against another's will or at the expense of another. Sexual misconduct includes sexual harassment, sexual assault, sexual abuse, and any conduct of sexual nature that is without consent or has the effect of threatening or intimidating the person against whom such conduct is directed. And just to give you some stats, in a literature review of educator sexual misconduct published by the U.S. Department of Education, found that 9.6% of high school students have experienced some form of sexual misconduct. In 4 to 43% of cases, the abusers were women. Black, Hispanic, and Native American children are at greatest risk for sexual abuse. And I'm not trying to make this about children. I'm just generalizing this at this point still. Also, at increased risk are children with disabilities because of their greater need for individual attention and having problems with communication. Children who have been victims of educator sexual misconduct usually have low self-esteem, and they are likely to develop suicidal ideology. and depression. Because the abuser was a person the child was encouraged to trust, or may experience a sense of betrayal. So, and then the 4 religious types of sexual misconduct are being not with the right person, being not with the right organ, and including having oral, anal sex or masturbation, being not at the right place, including temples, public areas, and rugged and rough places, being not at the right time, including women's periods, pregnancy, nursing, fasting, and disease. Now, the next definition comes from the University of Iowa Operations Manual. Sexual misconduct is a broad term encompassing any unwelcome behavior of a sexual nature that is committed without consent or by force, intimidation, coercion, or manipulation. Sexual misconduct can be committed by a person of any gender and can occur between people of the same or different gender. Consent, by definition, is a free and affirmative communicated willingness to participate in particular sexual activity or behavior, expressed either by words or clear, unambiguous actions. Consent must also be present throughout the sexual activity. Lack of protest or resistance does not mean consent. Being in a relationship with a partner does not imply consent. Consent to one type of activity does not imply consent to all activities. If there is any doubt pertaining to consent, then don't do it. Those that by default can not consent are those that are asleep, unconscious, involuntarily restrained physically, or who are incapacitated due to influence of drugs, alcohol, or medication, or those who are unable to communicate consent due to a mental or physical condition. And those and that includes those who are not of legal age, which in the United States is 18 years of age. Now, what I do want to say about this is it doesn't matter what country you're in. It doesn't matter if the legal age is 16. I would still maintain a level of appropriateness with sex with people even on those levels, because even at 16 or 17 or even 18 years old, a lot of times these people can't really think for themselves. They don't cognitize as well as adults or the real world does, if you even want to call it that. So I would still maintain an age of 18, at least they're 18 years of age, and depending, what the situation is, that's how it works. So anyhow, again, we talked about the various different types of sexual misconduct, assault, attempted, anyhow, let's see, what is this? Various types of sexual misconduct include and are not limited to sexual assault, sexual intercourse of any kind, and even if it's slight, attempted sexual intercourse, intentional contact with body parts, and also sexual harassment, sexual exploitation, sexual intimidation, and all. I mean, sexual misconduct, it comes in so many forms. With sexual, the next definition comes from the legal department, sexual misconduct and legal definition. Sexual misconduct encompasses a range of behavior used to obtain sexual gratification against another's will or at the expense of another. Sexual misconduct includes sexual harassment, sexual assault, and any conduct of sexual nature that is without consent. Again, the key operative word in sexual misconduct has to do with consent, or has the effect of threatening or intimidating the person against whom such conduct is directed. State laws vary on defining acts which constitute sexual misconduct. For this purpose, it includes intentional touching without consent, exposing his or her genitals under circumstances likely to cause problems, having sexual contact in the presence of a third person or persons under circumstances that are likely to cause problems. So if you're having sex in front of kids and you know that it's not healthy for them to do that, then you shouldn't be doing it. If there's ever, again, I'm reiterating this, if there's ever a question about a behavior that can be construed as sexual misconduct, then don't do it. Period. It's just like with maybe. In Tantra, whenever a person says maybe to something, it means no. Period. So anyhow, other acts of sexual misconduct include having sexual intercourse or deviate sexual intercourse in a public place in the presence of a third person, soliciting or requesting another person to engage in sexual conduct under circumstances in which he knows that his request or she, for that moment, or solicitation is likely to cause problems. Again, we're talking about prostitution, if anything else, forcing a victim to touch directly or through clothing another person's genitals, breast, groin, thighs, buttocks, or so, but a vaginal or anal intercourse, fellatio or cunnilingus, sexual penetration with an object without consent. Again, sexual misconduct is not just limited to rape or making sexual comments about people. We're talking about exposing yourself to people or having sex in front of people without any kind of agreement or safe word or if they're not of age, that's a whole different ballgame. So anyhow, so now one of the things that I found that leads to sexual misconduct is people not being able to set boundaries. They're not being able to establish consent, a formal consent. Would you agree with that, Debbie? Oh, what's going on? Hang on, time out. These idiots, whoever they are, probably BlogTalkRadio, they cut me off. Bunch of assholes. So that's the other one.
Welcome to Blog Talk Radio. Please enter your host PIN. When finished, press.
To start your show now, press 1. To hear important instructions, press 2. To speak to customers.
Since it appears you're calling back into a live show, we are reconnecting you now. This service is provided conferencecall.com. Please enter your access code. If you are the host, press the recording has started. Please announce yourself.
Okay, so I'm back. I don't know.
Please enter your PIN followed by the pound or hash. If you do, thank you.
So, are you there, Debbie? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, good. So I don't know what was the last thing that you. Yeah, and see, in the past I've had these either free conference call or Blog Talk Radio play games with me and pull this shit and cut me off like that.
Aww.
But anyhow, so what was it the last thing that you heard from me?
Well, Andrew, I think we were just talking about you were reading about consent rather, and what that looks like and how to establish it, and then just kind of giving your definitions of how you want.
Well, they're not. I want to be very clear. They're not my definitions. They're the definitions of a legal system, also of University of Iowa, and also Wikipedia. So I want to be very clear about that. They have nothing to do with being my.
You'll provide those links, I presume.
Yeah.
When you post information.
So now, again, if people want to overcome being a perpetrator or being or just being doing sexual misconduct activities, they need to understand the boundaries, and I think that's the problem. A lot of times is people don't know what those boundaries are on the legal standpoint of view, or within their own environment, whatever that means, wherever they're at. So I think that's part of the problem. And so now the other part of the problem is identifying whether you're a sex addict or you have compulsive sexual behavior. I think that's another part of the problem. So, are you feeling guilty? Are you feeling shameful? Do you hurt your family with this type of behavior? Do you do illegal drugs, or are you heavily medicated, or are you drinking? And a lot of the problems have to do with those addictions. Are connected. They come hand in hand, and they're connected.
You haven't said anything about pornography use.
Yep, and exactly. But again, I think that's the result of the behavior of the acting out. It is the pornography use, is the acting out, is the behavior.
I differ. I say the pornography use is the cause of the acting out.
Yeah, well, okay. Well, either way, it's all a process of acting out. Regardless of which came first, it's still a process. And again, whether it be illegal or legal acting out, it's still acting out, and you got to decide for yourself: are you a sex addict? Or do you have sexual compulsive disorder? And if you do, and this is causing problems with work, especially if this is causing problems with work and your family, then you really want to look at yourself and be honest with yourself. You want to be transparent and think about it, because is it really worth it to hurt your family, to hurt your kids, and especially if you have kids? This energy is going to be passed down to them, and they're going to have problems. Do you really want to pass that type of energy back down to your kids, to your family, to your friends? Is that something that you?
I have a question.
Go ahead.
In your research, do you look at references that said there was actually porn addiction and sex addiction?
Yeah, I did.
Are you aware that there is great debate in the psychological community because the manual, which is a diagnostic manual, does not have a reference to these addictions? Perhaps they're not addictions at all, but merely egos running unchecked with penises and vaginas attached to them.
And that's what I'm saying is, if you go to one manual, you'll find one definition, and it'll refer to it won't refer to pornography. But if you go to the legal system or whatever other man, it does refer to pornography and other stuff. So you want to look at the definitions of sexual misconduct and also sexual addiction and compulsive sexual behavior. But you don't want to go to just one source. You want to look at a number of sources so you can get a clear idea of what we're talking about, what this is, of how serious this is. I mean, people are ending up in jail, in prison. Somewhere it says that what was it? Was it this? Anyhow, 55% of the sex offenders are typically sex addicts. That was a stat that was put out there. And I don't know where it's at, but I have it here somewhere. But anyhow, you want people, when people, especially, and again, not just the perpetrators, but the victims, they want to look at these stats. They want to look at these definitions and understand what we're talking about, how serious this is. And if you go to the book on toxic shame by John Bradshaw, there's 96% of the people in the United States alone are being victimized, are prone to PTSD. To me, if you've encountered even one act of violence, you are prone to PTSD, and it may not be as significant as with other cases, but you still are prone to PTSD. Again, according to John Bradshaw, the numbers are up to 96% of the people in the United States are prone to PTSD. In my understanding, in the definition that I understand, so it's like that. So this is a lot more serious than people think, and people coming out, and some of these people are being malicious with their actions and their intentions of accusing people. But for the most part, I think most of everyone, probably 85, 90%, I don't know, maybe 95% of the people that are pointing the finger, putting themselves out there, are well intentioned. They're looking to establish a much healthier level of power. And again, we're going back to power. A lot of this has to do with power, and consent, and the power structure. I think women and men, but I think mostly women, are tired of it. They're tired of being the couch, the person on the couch that's getting, you know, screwed. No pun intended, right? So it's like that. Does that make sense to you?
Right.
So it's like that. So again, for people to really heal from all this, they need to understand what sexual misconduct is and all its meanings and definitions, and need to know that you can go to jail, you can go to prison. A lot of people have already done so for this behavior. You also have to register for the sex offenders program registry. And now another thing that I found is that now if you're a sex offender, you're classified as sex, you may not even be able to leave the country anymore, because they're identifying people on passports now, and even kids that are having to register for the registry, and their passports are being denied. So I mean, this is a lot more serious than people think. And people really want to identify. Now, one of the things that I came across, Debbie, was that taxes, you know, the people, and this is what's annoying. The people that are well-to-do, you know, they're paying people off. You know, here's $1 million to shut your mouth, and you can't talk about this anymore. Blah blah blah. They're claiming those settlements on their taxes, which is a bunch of bullshit. Okay, so if they make a claim, then they can claim that on their taxes, and they've recently changed the law for that to prevent that from happening so much. But it's still going on. It's still a huge factor to consider in terms of what's happening with this whole situation of the power structure. And not only that, but the people that make these claims, that are paying all this money for lawyers to get some sense of justice, you know, that are making these claims, aren't able to make any claims at all on taxes. They can't claim none of it. So, you know, where do you draw the line? How do you know? It all, you know, it's just so just bewildering. Does that make sense to you?
It doesn't make any sense to me whatsoever.
So anyhow, finally, again, you have to know what the foundation are, what the rules, the guidelines are, so that you know where to draw boundaries. Okay, and if you and again, this has to do with consent. If you don't flirt with some guy and you don't want their attention, you have to draw those boundaries. Okay, as a victim, or potential victim, if you don't even want to go there. I don't even like to use the word victim, but anyhow, we're going forward. So anyhow, if you know the boundaries and the guidelines, if both parties know the boundaries and the guidelines, then there should be no problems. There should be no excuse for any violations at all from either party being able to identify those guidelines and that foundation. So you know where the boundaries are, and everything should be business as usual. Everybody should be on the professional level. There should be no problem. So again, if you're having problems with alcohol, drugs, or whatever, you got sexually abused when you were a kid, whatever, then you might be prone to being a sex addict or have sexual compulsive disorder. So if that's the case, then you need to identify that and go get help. And there's all kinds of organizations. Let me see, where was it? There's Sex Addicts Anonymous. What was it? There's a few groups that you can go to. Sex Addicts Anonymous, sexual recovery. There's even a workshop, a 3-day workshop for men called Gateway to Freedom, that you can go out and get some attention, get some help, and again, people that are acting out like this, typically it's because they're in pain from something or another, or they're being idiots because they're on drugs or alcohol or whatever, or even medication. Certain medications could cause these problems. So now, one of the things that was very clear that needed to happen as someone that wants to heal from this. You know, I'm Harvey Weinstein. I'm Matt Lauer. I'm you know, whoever, and I want to heal from this. I don't want to do this anymore. Yeah. First of all, you got to admit, you got to be honest with yourself. You got to be transparent. You got to be clear. You got to be straightforward with yourself. You got to be professional, right? You want to be a professional in a professional world, then act like a professional. You have to take responsibility for your actions. And so one of the ways that you can do that is to understand sexual integrity in terms of what it means. Before engaging in sexual activity, and this is what we're talking about, sexual integrity, casual, committed, or something in between, each person should know what it is that matters to him or her, both sexually and interpersonally. And in Tantra, this is what we call setting up agreements. Is that correct, Debbie? Are you with me?
Yes, that's correct. We do boundaries and agreements, and all of that is discussed via email, in person, and even like you did tonight, you let people know, made them aware, you made an agreement. We're not here to diagnose, pass law. You're quoting direct resources that people can go back and research themselves. I think that's extremely tantric because it's sacred, it's authentic, and the information is readily available.
Exactly. So anyhow, again, each person should know what it is that matters to him or her, both sexually and interpersonally, not just in the moment, but in the longer term. Once a person has sufficiently defined those boundaries, once you have defined an agreement, set boundaries, then that individual is much less likely to engage in sexual activity that will cause emotional distress, either during or after. So again, setting boundaries, setting agreements, setting up and that's what distinguishes between having a relationship that's healthy and having one that's out of acting out. Okay, the trick when developing your personal.
Right.
Go ahead.
I agree. That's very healthy.
The trick when developing your personal version of sexual integrity is figuring out what works and makes sense to you, and to a lesser extent to the other people around you. Once you have established a workable plan for yourself, you are much less likely to experience negative consequences if you are sexual. Again, we're talking about setting up agreements. We are talking about understanding consent, whether it be verbal, nonverbal, or otherwise. And we're talking, and even I would go so far as to set up a safe word. It doesn't talk about this, but I've been looking at different avenues, and I think even setting up a safe word between you and another partner is, or partners for that matter, is probably a good idea. Again, you want to establish some kind of foundation of what's healthy, what everybody agrees to, and what you want out of a sexual relationship. So to set up a sexual integrity plan, you may consider the following: relationship and personality assessment test, literature that emphasizes healthy relationships, courses on sexual behavior and results. Again, some kind of workshops or whatever. And there's a lot of tantric workshops out there that could make the difference between you going to jail or prison tomorrow, or having a good, healthy, productive lifestyle. And that's that. If you're being productive, you're being professional, you're being of service, you're being creative, then you're in the right direction. If there's problems going on, then you need to check yourself. You need to check your communication. You need to check your actions, words, and deeds, and you need to check with the people that you're having problems with, and see how that works. Now, one of the things that I've come across that you might, if you are the perpetrator and it's already done and said, or even if you are the person that that's thinking about being a perpetrator, or even if you are the victim, you might want to write a letter or just sit down and vocalize it out loud. You don't have to do it in front of anyone, but you might want to write a letter. And nobody sees this letter except you and the universe, and that's it. And say, hey, victim person, I apologize about my behavior. Please forgive me, and hopefully, and from now on, I hope that we are on better terms with each other. Blah blah blah. I really like you, or I was just not having a good day. Whatever you say, whatever you want to say. But again, you're going to want to include being forgiven. And what the heck is going on? So I'm going to do because I'm also putting this on Instagram. But anyhow, you're going to want to include asking for forgiveness, asking for asking, and you're going to want to forgive yourself. Take the time and sit there and say, hey, Joe Schmo, I know you're having a hard year this year, and I apologize that you're going through all that stuff, and I forgive you. And Joe Schmo is you. You're looking at yourself, and you're forgiving yourself. You want to take time to let that go and let all this crap go. All right? And then the other thing that you want to do is again, if you feel like you are prone to addiction, sex addiction, or sexual compulsive disorder, you might want to take the next step and seek out help on levels that will be in your area, on a personal level, to help you get through whatever it is you're going through. So obviously, and not only that, but I also want to mention that some of this stuff isn't just about this lifetime. Some of this stuff could actually be coming from other lifetimes. Some of this stuff can be coming from your parents, your grandparents, and even great-grandparents. Some of the stuff, it's an energy that's passed down from generation to generation a lot of times. So this is not necessarily just your sexual misconduct. It's a generation or several generations worth of sexual misconduct, and you can be the person that nips it in the bud and breaks the whole.
Breaks the cycle.
Yep.
And starts with a healing, and I think that you're just barely scratching the surface. Someone that might be concerned about sexual cravings, compulsions, finding themselves acting out passive aggressively or violently needs to seek a therapist or the professional doctor and have a conversation. And that, Tantra is not a therapy, it is a practice like meditation and yoga, and has the ability to put present time love to heal those wounds, whether afflicted or caused by ourselves in the past, so that one can have a shameless and guilt-free communication. It is easy to remember that it seems to be about sex, and you mentioned this in passing. The other part of the equation is about power and maybe reevaluating what one seems valuable in life. Because there were as many victims that spoke forward, there were as many women and men who declined the path to the top through a sexual encounter, or had the wherewithal within to keep that boundary. It's not easy peasy once you say, hey, Andrew, we're not going to interrupt each other on the phone call. What happens when that happens, or when those boundaries can't be kept? Or let's say I have a pop-up boundary. You've just brought up a topic that I'm going to interrupt you because it's a boundary for it to be kind of glazed over for me in this realm. It isn't just a one linear approach. It's a holistic approach. And just like we teach our sons and daughters, their body is a temple, and that they can come to me or to you to keep themselves safe. Now, the generations that are dealing with this change of the sexual order are feeling, very restrictive. How do you know you have consent even when she says yes or he says yes? And a safe word's an interesting way, and it kind of smells of 50 Shades of Grey. I don't use safe words in my session work or in my personal practice. I have agreements. I get eye contact. I look for the light on behind the eyes. I ask the person to repeat back the question. May I interrupt you on the phone call? You said no. So if you would ask me that question, for instance, I would repeat it back to you. May I interrupt you on the phone call? May Andrew interrupt me on the phone call? Yes.
No, what are you talking about?
For example, so there are ways that the tantric practice gives us attention to this. But a lot of what we're using is nonviolent communication skills that.
That's right.
Marshall, and I don't want to misquote him. I'll look it up really quickly. And I hate the title of it, Nonviolent Communication. Feel my hate, my violence. Yeah. Because I have passion. And I want to express that.
So now what I want to do is I want to bring in, there's a guest.
Is that it's all about empathy.
Okay. Because we don't have a lot of time left. I want to bring on this guest. They look like they want to ask a question. And then I want to take a time out real quick. So hang on a second, time out. Aloha, area code 475, you're on the air. Okay. I guess they freaked out because they didn't want to ask a question. But anyhow, so what I want to do, I want to take a time out. I want to play Day of Sweet Dreams by Serena Gabriel from her album Diving Deep, who was also the song, the introductory song that we were hearing. That was from her album, and also the song called Diving Deep. I want to send out love, blessings, healings, angels of light, and love to all the victims and perpetrators out there that just need a little bit of love. Sometimes they just need a little love, and then and
these words land as though you were speaking them. I really was surprised how much her words for the first time I've heard the song really spoke to me. Like, yes. Speaking of someone who survived 25 years of heinous and sexual abuse by the hands of a pedophile, I have to let you know that letting it go sometimes is a little bit at a time. Yeah. It's kind of like small learning. If you just learn like, I just got to start to be willing to have a conversation around how that experience, whatever it is for you, impacted your life. Or impacted my life. And each day I become more and more aware of where that filter of my experience causes me to behave differently if I were to have that filter removed by meditation or atonement.
Exactly. So A Day of Dreams by Serena Gabriel from her album Diving Deep. I want to send out love, blessings, healings, angels of light, love to all the victims, to all the perpetrators, to, of course, to you, Debbie, and your family and friends, to my family and friends and myself, to my places of residence, to your places of residence, to your vehicles that take care of you, to the President of the United States, of course, that guy needs some help, and all his entourage, to all the kids and the animals and the plants on the planet, especially the ones that need concern. Anyone you want to add to that, Debbie?
And I appreciate including me and my family, and my heart is softening myself towards the person who led that experience for me. Because as I said, having empathy and being able to see where someone can go astray gives us the place to forgive ourselves.
Okay, so to everyone that needs to still forgive their perpetrators or their victims or whatever, to everyone else that needed concern, we will be back. Day of Sweet Dreams by Serena Gabriel from her album Diving Deep.
walking on sand beneath my feet, feeling the love in every heartbeat. La 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 la. Whispering wind, crashing waves, taking me in is what I crave. La 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 la. Clouds hover as I discover reflecting truth as my lover. La 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 la. La la la. La 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 la. Beautiful rainbows in the sky, fractal colors fill my eyes. Consumes me in the light, Mother Earth swallows me in this light. Kissed by the stars, kissed by the light. Kissed by the stars, kissed by the light. This is the peace of this inside. This is the peace of this inside. La 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 la.
And we're back. This is Andrew Aloha live out of Flagstaff, Arizona with Spiritual Productions on BlogTalkRadio and Free Conference Call and YouTube. Establishing and maintaining right relationships in the human body. Tonight we're talking about, we're doing the Intimacy Tantra Relationships Psychically Fulfilled show here with guest Holly Devi Amoore, talking about how do Matt Lauer, Harvey Weinstein, and others overcome sexual misconduct. And this is not just for those that have already been caught, those have already committed to the act, but this is also for those that are thinking about it. I mean, even if you're thinking about it, or already, or doing compulsive sexual behavior practices or whatever, and also for victims, if they understand how the perpetrators are thinking, then maybe that will help them steer themselves out of their way, or maybe prevent any kind of behavior, acting out, lashing out happening. And typically, again, we talked about this earlier, that a lot of this has to do with power structure. And I think in the egotistical form of power, that is also associated with pain. There's some kind of pain that has come from all this, and so people want to achieve power because who knows what happened when they were a kid or whatever. So they want power, and it's a power struggle, not only within themselves, but there are forms of lashing out and acting out and taking it out on others too. So that's not cool. So if you want to deal with this behavioral acting out, then you need to take up responsibility for it. You need to be professional and stand in your power, in your true power, and not be scared, not be fearful to go out and get help, especially if you're a sex addict or you're coping to sexual compulsive disorder. So if you're
I think you want to seek out a counselor or a Tantra Practitioner if you feel compulsive and have a craving for pornography.
Okay.
I agree it's an art form. And Andrew Aloha, I think since the onset of downstream visual availability of pornography, it hasn't boded well for us as men or women sexually. Exactly.
And then one of the things that's come out of this is also that the bottom line is you want to understand what consent is and what sexual misconduct is according to the legal system, because otherwise you could end up in jail and in prison. And is that going to do you any good, your family, your kids, your friends any good? Well, it's not going to do you any good at all. And so one of the things that's also come out of this is that you want to understand sexual integrity and set up a system, a plan to establish sexual integrity for yourself, and then maybe even get support to have other people call you on it and help you out with it. And I'm not saying to beat you up with it, but to support you and help you out with it. Now, some of the other things that you can do that would be helpful, again, as Debbie has stated, is seek out a talk. If your situation is not a really heavy duty addiction or compulsive disorder, or something that's not way out of line and is causing you problems. And that's the other thing too. Is if this sexual behavior is causing you problems, legal problems, problems with family, problems with your job, then that's a major red flag that says you need to get help. Period. Like yesterday. And now, if you've already been caught and everything, all that's already happened, then some of the things, again, that you might want to do is write a letter of forgiveness, asking for forgiveness of the people that you violated, and forgive yourself, and then just take it and offer it up as a blessing to the universe and burn it and let it go. And then some of the other things you can do tantric practices. You can attend tantric gatherings regularly. You can again, if you haven't set up an agreement or guidelines or even a safe word with a lover, then chances are that you might be looking to go into violation mode. So you want to at least even for a one night stand, you might be talking with a lover, potential one night stand lover, and as you're talking, you're doing foreplay and you're setting up agreement. I like this, I don't like that, and yeah, I like you, and yeah, I'd be interested in going out for a walk with you later, blah blah, whatever. But you are setting up agreements during that conversation, and even so. So we're talking about doing forgiveness program. Let me see what else. Get in touch with your inner child, inner womb. If you don't know how to do that, I'm not sure that Debbie deals with that, but I do a mentoring program where I do that. Be in right conduct, right action, right relationship with others at all times. If anything else, do a praying.
I just it being really powerful for anyone, a man or a woman or a couple dealing with porn addiction and the boundaries and consent issues to do your program online, to seek out a session with someone like me, and then go back and follow up with you and see, how is it going?
Absolutely.
Are they getting the results that they want from the means and the way that's being communicated? Because the next finesse level is how to get your needs met using, nonviolent communication forms, having a way to get together and talk, and perhaps it should be continued with me modeling a conversation with how to get consent and know that you've really got consent. Absolutely.
Perfect. Exactly. And again, and that's the other part of this program, is that you want to surround yourself with people that are healthy and in right healthy relations, and that are supporting you, and that you can actually support them as well in a certain aspect. So other things that you can again, and I state this in my list of things for overcoming the sexual misconduct. Stay away from places and people that promote or enhance sexual misconduct. If
that means no pornography watching. What is a guy to do, Andrew?
Well, again, I don't know that. Well, in a lot of cases, you're absolutely correct. Maybe pornography is an unhealthy.
Make love, not porn. .org has very pristine, authentic actors and actresses who are not performing. They are really showing you how they make love, how they self-pleasure, where in pornography, it's really, there's no love there. There's no energy or connection. It's purely mechanical, physical acts of sex which disassociate us from our heart nature.
And again, and I think that anything in moderation that's not. We're not talking about illegal stuff, but anything that's in moderation doesn't necessarily hurt you. But if you are obsessed with something, then that's a whole different ballgame. Like with food, or with sex, or with violence, or whatever. Some of the things you can do, that instead of watching pornography, is you can watch videos on Tantra, or read articles and magazines on Tantra. Either way, you want to stay away from places and people that promote violence or sexual misconduct, and that's part of the biggest thing that you want to look at. Then other things you can do is, that will be a huge help is do hatha yoga, do Pilates, go walking, do hikes, and all kinds of similar practices that will help your body system breathe better, and also even your eating habits. You might even want to look at your eating habits, which could be causing you problems as well. So, and you don't even know it. So other things you can do is mantras, affirmations, you can prayer, meditation. You can do art or other similar hobbies that will keep you that will help you reprogram your daily activities and keep you away from alcohol and drugs.
About a pleasure practice?
Yep, there's self-pleasuring, and then the other thing, and that's something you can do in a good, healthy way. There are practices you can do. Now, the only other thing that I can advise you to do that might help is do hypnosis. Maybe you might want to attend a series of
90 seconds.
What's that?
I think all of those supportive cognitive brain reprogramming is very helpful with creating any type of like you said, obsession where there doesn't seem to be a cognitive choice being made by the individual. Got it.
So now, I think we only got about a minute left here now. I don't know if I can do it, but I'm gonna attempt to do it anyhow. I'm gonna do a program designed to help people clear their energy fields of sexual misconduct. Are you okay with that, Debbie?
Oh, let's do it.
Okay. So take a deep breath into your nose, and for those people listening to this in the future, this applies to you too. Take a deep breath into your nose, out of your mouth. Put one hand on your heart, and I'm going to be quiet for about a minute. Here I go.
Ten seconds.
Okay, do you feel anything? Did you feel anything from that, Debbie?
Oh, definitely. You know, I practice white tantra, so just the mere thought of connecting with those subtle energy centers, I get this bubbling sensation and clarity and a sense of peace of mind.
Got it. So I want to thank all of you for stopping by, and be well. Take care of yourself. Take care of you. Be you. Have a God Goddess week. Be the love that you are, always have been, and always will be. Aloha.